My name is Grace Doyle. I am a legislative assistant. I've worked at the Minnesota House of Representatives for about 2 years now. I am a committee legislative assistant, so I work with the Committee on Labor, Industry, Veterans, and Military Affairs. And I work with Representatives Rob Eklund and Julie Sandstead from the Iron Range area up north in northern Minnesota. So I'm the assistant I move bills in and out of committee, and I help them with administrative tasks. I've also worked as a constituent services specialist, where I did research and writing for all the representatives with the DFL caucus at the House. One thing that's really cool about my job is that not only I get to be like the mechanics of the legislature, but I get to work with specific policy areas, like working with specific labor issues, especially like right now we're in the pandemic, and there's a lot happening about what we're going to do with jobs, and how we're going to get aid and support to people. And I get to help address those specific issues. I get to learn a lot about the policy, which is really incredible, and I get to build relationships with my members, advocates who work in those issue areas, which is one of my favorite parts, working with the advocates. Yeah, and just sort of getting the perspective of how things work on the inside of government has been really valuable, both in my position and like thinking as an advocate. So I graduated high school in 2011, and then I waited 2 years before I went to college, which actually was really helpful because when I went back to school, I just felt really prepared to sort of figure out what I wanted to do. And then I went to Mankato State University with a double major in communications and gender and women's studies. So I sort of went into it like learning about theory and learning about sociology and how the world works, but from a perspective of like, I can report on this and I can help get this information out there. When I left Mankato, I wanted to be an advocate. So I joined the MAPL program, Masters of Advocacy and Political Leadership, so that I could learn about how to advocate, learn about policy structures, how the government worked, and I thought I could report on this. I could work in communications still. And it really opened me up to all these other options that I didn't know existed in the political world. Because I had only thought politics is being a politician, and there are so many other pieces. So got my master's degree and decided to switch from the nonprofit world, which is still in my program, to the concentration of my program that was the public sector. So I studied public policy and I really liked process, and that's how I started working at the Capitol. Okay, so from a bachelor's degree perspective, if you're looking at a 4-year school or a 2-year school, most have some sort of public policy, democracy, civics style courses. I think any of those would be an excellent start for political science and getting the foundation of how the government works. And most Minnesota state colleges, private colleges will have something like that. Like I said, I came from like women's studies and communications, and that's like kind of, you can make a lot of different degrees work in this field. And then the best part about choosing a master's program is you can take whatever you came from. It could probably even be like arts, to be honest, because the arts overlap so much with social movements. and that like you can make a lot of different degrees fit in the political world. And then my master's program has 3 concentrations that you can work on, or you can do a blend of them, and it's labor organizing, public policy, or nonprofit leadership. And you can choose to focus on one or a combination. And like I said, there's a lot of different ways to fit with that. Some other schools that do that, the Humphrey School at the U is a very popular option for people who live in the metro or people who come to Minnesota. There are so many different jobs that you could go to from the education that I received with political leadership. A big one, obvious one, you can run for office. Running for office, I think, has a stigma around it that it's one specific type of person who is raised and trained for that job. I think we have an idea of what that looks like based on our representation right now. But what it's supposed to be is that you are supposed to have a representative from your area who is representing your ideas to the government when laws are made and decisions are made. And that should be anybody who is active in the community, who has experience in whatever is happening there. It could be from a working class perspective, it could be from volunteering in your community, from just being active with your friends and neighbors, and that a lot more people are qualified for that job than it seems. So that is one option. Another is from the other side of the screen, I guess. So representatives work at the Capitol, senators, representatives, the governor, and then there's the people who bring those ideas, those proposals to the representatives. And that can be just citizens in your community. You're contacting a representative because there's an issue in their jurisdiction. It could be an advocate or a lobbyist. And what they do is they take those ideas, they break it down a proposal, and they say, this is why we need this thing. We are experts in this thing. And they bring those ideas, they make it easy, they break it down for the representative, and then they think about that and try and move it into law. So it's kind of like a gateway into, it's a job that is like, that's making the change kind of a thing. Then there's like the nonprofit world. A lot of times we have advocates and lobbyists work with nonprofits or organizations or things like that, like non-governmental organizations. And that could be so much more than just advocacy. That could be doing the work in the community. So a shelter, an animal shelter, a women's shelter, a homeless shelter, something like that, is very politically charged, but it's doing a totally different kind of work. It's more of like an immediate need. My program, in the MAPL program, it absolutely just exceeded my expectations for what it was like to be in a master's degree or master's program. I had 8 class members in my cohort. So in a master's program, you get set up with a cohort, and those are the people that you move through the program with. These people you really get to build a relationship with, learn a lot from, and go through that experience together and then graduate together. And then that adds to your network after graduation. So these people are really with you for life. Cohorts interact with each other. And one thing that was really important about my experience was that people came from so many different places. There was so much diversity in age, gender, economic background, work experience. So it was just really valuable to get that. I had come from school. I hadn't had a whole lot of political experience before. My classmates were business owners, worked with nonprofits, worked with energy advocacy, women's shelters, education was a big one. I worked a lot in like LGBTQ justice issues and women's issues. And so just learning about like policy and building proposals and the structure, but like being able to do that with like an intersectional lens was really important. And being able to listen and check each other and take things from different perspectives was very, very valuable. And the program that I was in was very accommodating to all different identities. So the class schedule was very flexible, which allowed people to come to the program with a working schedule, which can be unusual for master's programs. We help people get into internships, which both can offer paid opportunity to work and get a job after graduating. And a lot of that comes from our peers in our cohort and connections we have through our alumni network. So, just a lot of support, I suppose.